The Apophis asteroid. You've heard about it. But what is NASA not telling you? And is this possibly Revelation 6 seal? Apophis is the most potentially hazardous asteroid ever discovered. On Friday, April 13th, 2029, and yes, that is a Friday the 13th, it will approach our planet at a distance of what NASA says is just 19,000 miles, passing closer to the Earth than even the orbits of geostationary satellites. Now, scientists assume and assure us that it won't hit the Earth. But is there something they're not telling you? And if it does hit, it would be a civilization-ending event. And if so, then it certainly will be part of Bible prophecy, right? Something of that magnitude can't happen if it's not in the Bible. That's why we're discussing this in today's teaching. Now, if scientists are right and Apophis misses the Earth, it'll be interesting because it'll be highly visible from Europe, Africa, and Western Asia, looking like a bright star, magnitude 3.1, streaking across the sky. That is the narrative that NASA's telling us. But like we said, what if they're wrong? What if it hits the Earth? It would be a civilization-ending event, just like we said, causing a darkening of the sun, moon, and stars in kind of a nuclear winter. Volcanoes, tsunamis, tornado-strength winds, earthquakes, and a rain of meteors, all exactly like what's described at Revelation 6 seal. So, if that's true, what if the governments of the Earth decide to take action and blow it up so that only fragments of it hit the Earth? Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We'll get to that, but first let's start at the beginning. Apophis resembles a peanut in shape. It was first discovered in 2004 when astronomers located it, like 80 million miles from the Earth. Initially, this rock, the size of 3 football fields, didn't seem very noteworthy, so it was just given a rather scientific name, 2004 MN4. However, as scientists continued to study, they realized it had only an incredible 1 in 37 chance of colliding with the Earth, killing billions and ending civilization as we know it. That caught their attention. A 1 in 37 probability was the highest ever calculated for any significant asteroid impact in recorded history. At that time, this was, about a 3% chance. That's pretty bad odds, for something that could kill billions. So this is when the asteroid was renamed Apophis, after the Egyptian god of destruction. In Egyptian mythology, Apophis, also known as Apep, is the great serpent. Sounds biblically familiar, doesn't it? The enemy of their sun god, Ra. It represented darkness, and Ra represented light. The sun was Ra's great barge in which he sailed through the sky from dawn to dusk, and then, at night, Ra would descend into the underworld. In that part of its daily journey, it sailed through the darkness. It was attacked then by Apophis, who would seek to kill Ra and prevent another sunrise. Apophis desired to have the world descend into eternal darkness. If the asteroid that we're talking about were to hit the Earth, that is exactly what would happen, at least for a significant period of years. If Apophis hits the Earth, it will cause complete, widespread destruction or vaporization up to several hundred miles from its impact site. The energy released would be equal to more than 1,000 megatons of TNT or hundreds of nuclear weapons. For instance, if Apophis were to hit downtown Baltimore, it would vaporize Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. as well. Vaporize them. The strike would probably be followed by the ejection of rock and dirt into the atmosphere, which would fall back to Earth as millions of red-hot meteors. The impact would also cause volcanoes, which in turn would lead to thick cloud formations and years of climate disruption, a nuclear winter. The earthquakes would also lead to massive tsunamis and winds of hundreds of miles an hour throughout the Earth. Millions, if not billions, of humans would die. Now, the rich and famous who have built bunkers would likely be hiding in them. And if you're a Christian, These events probably seem very familiar. Like maybe they're found in the book of Revelation, right? Well, they are. They are the same events as the sixth seal found in Revelation 6:12 through 17. In fact, they seem eerily familiar and similar to an impact like this. When he opened the sixth seal, I looked, and behold, there was a great earthquake. There's the earthquake that happens on impact. And the sun became as black as sackcloth. The full moon became like blood. There's the darkening due to the clouds. And the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. There's both the falling back to earth of the millions of meteorites and the 100-mile-an-hour winds. The sky vanished like a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Yeah, to me, that even sounds like a potential pole shift. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone, slave and free, hid in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains, calling to the mountains and rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of a lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand?" Revelation 6:12 through 17. Jesus added tsunamis in Luke 21's account of the sixth seal, so in total, it's a picture-perfect match of what would happen after a comet or asteroid strike, be that Apophis or another similar asteroid or comet. Interestingly, the events in Scripture that immediately follow the sixth seal, the trumpet judgments, also seem possibly related to an asteroid strike. The impact of blood, fire, and ice of the first trumpet, the burning of a third of the world's vegetation, a fiery rock like a mountain hitting the sea, that's part of the second trumpet, and wormwood, which is described as a falling star making a third of the fresh water bitter at the third trumpet, and the darkening of the sun, moon of the fourth trumpet. Now, Dr. Tom Horn has proposed that Apophis will hit the earth and that this will be wormwood. But as you can see from these events, it would be much more extensive than just the third trumpet. We're talking about a lot of events, and events that the Bible groups at the same time as all happening at about that same time. So, as soon as scientists understood and reported the severity of such an impact, media around the world began to discuss it, and Apophis became known as the most dangerous asteroid ever discovered. In March 2021, as Apophis came somewhat near the Earth, millions of miles, but somewhat near the Earth, astronomers decided to utilize powerful radar telescope observations to get a better grip on its actual orbit around the sun, and in so doing, they could decide whether it was really going to hit the Earth or not in 2029. They needed to know. To the apparent relief of everyone in the scientific community, the updated analysis ruled out any significant Earth impacts for at least the next century. That is, if it continues on its present course. But two things can change that, and the media never talks about that. For one, there's something known as the Yarkovsky effect, which is a slow, gradual change in the asteroid's orbit. The Yarkovsky event is really interesting. It occurs from an interaction between the asteroid and the heat of the sun. When the sunlight strikes a rotating asteroid, the side facing the sun heats up. But as the asteroid continues to rotate and turn away from the sun, it cools down and releases heat. This release of heat acts like a small rocket booster, and it exerts a significant thrust on the asteroid, which can change its direction over time. That's right. The Yarkovsky effect is subtly changing the orbit of Apophis and all rotating asteroids. NASA never, ever talks about this. Why? Because they can't really predict this effect, so they don't want you to know about it. Second, what happens if another asteroid happens to hit Apophis by accident? That's right. It would change the orbit, just like the old video game Asteroids. Do you remember that? They would bump into each other and fly all over the place. These changes can be positive, either taking it away from the Earth or disastrously causing it to impact us. In other words, there remain slight chances that this massive asteroid may collide with our planet. Personally, I believe the secular scientists are more concerned than they're telling you. The date of its potential impact, Friday the 13th, probably spooks the superstitious among them. And it's just that they just don't want to cause concern among the rest of us because there's really not a whole lot that they can do, and that's why they keep quiet. Now, this is where NASA's OSIRIS APEX mission comes into the picture. I don't know if you've heard about that. Osiris, of course, is another Egyptian god. In Egyptian mythology, in a text known as the Book of Gates, the goddess Isis, who is associated with the woman of Mystery Babylon in the Bible, assisted by other deities, capture Apophis and restrain him, where he is then chopped up into pieces. And the next night comes back and is regenerated, and again is waiting for the barge of the sun when it enters the underworld. So they never really broke up Apophis. They never really were able to damage it. And I think this ancient mythology describes NASA's ultimate plan for Apophis and other similar asteroids, to break them up into pieces, possibly with nuclear weapons, loaded onto spacecraft. OSIRIS APEX, by the way, is the same spacecraft that was launched back in 2016. It's just been up in space all that time under the name OSIRIS-REx to collect samples from another asteroid, Bennu. It's now being repurposed. The OSIRIS mission has no weapons on board. OSIRIS APEX is a fact-gathering craft only, so it can't do anything to push Apophis away from us. That said, OSIRIS APEX won't be the sole spacecraft sent to visit Apophis. And true to form, the nations are sending several other missions targeting this particular asteroid. They are very interested and probably concerned about it. Among these missions, one has been proposed by the South Korean team aiming to launch a spacecraft in 2027 that will arrive at Apophis in January 2029, just before Apophis's flyby. Additionally, missions featuring smaller spacecraft are scheduled for launch in 2025 and 2026. One of these spacecraft, the Apophis Pathfinder, will execute the first ever close flyby of Apophis, reaching the asteroid about a year after it is launched. Earlier this year, NASA officials also presented a proposal to detach a whole swarm of tiny spacecraft to Apophis. Any or all of these missions could carry nuclear bombs designed to blow it up, or some kind of engine that could move the asteroid. But would that help? So what happens if the nations try to blow up the asteroid? What impacts can we assume will happen? We asked this before. The idea of blowing up an approaching asteroid with a nuclear warhead has been looked at since like the early 1950s. It has pretty much been concluded that a nuclear detonation could fragment a large asteroid, but if that happened, Earth would be hit by a bunch of impacts instead of just one large one. And the many impacts are supposed to cause more damage than allowing the asteroid to hit just one spot. The preferred option, according to NASA, then, is to change the trajectory of the asteroid so that it misses the Earth. A small deflection far away can turn into a large deflection by the time it reaches us. But the technology to do that still has to be developed. It hasn't been developed at all. And here's an excerpt from the testimony given to the U.S. Congress by former astronaut Ed Lu and Michael Aheron, who are the leaders of the Deep Impact team that actually sent a small probe and hit a comet with it. They estimated Earth would need 10 years to be safe. Apophis, after all, is only 5.5 years away. Here's some of that testimony. Dr. Lu: it'll get much more difficult, but closer that it is in. That is, again, the importance of getting early warning, because the closer it is to you, the more you need to deflect it to get it to miss you. Dr. Aheron: And you would have to have something ready to launch. Basically, if you wanted to do it on short notice, 10 years, 20 years, then you have the time to plan it. 5 years or less. It is really hard unless you have thought the problem through and designed the thing. Because what we need, we have nothing like this right now. We are not taking an existing weapon system or existing vehicle and modifying it. We are really starting from scratch. So that's what some of the leading experts in the field had to say. Deflecting it at this point is impossible. So, when it comes to Apophis, we know such an impact will match the biblical prophecy, the sixth seal of Revelation, which immediately precedes the return of Jesus according to Matthew 24:29-31. Now, that doesn't mean the sixth seal has to happen that way. God can accomplish anything he wants to accomplish his purposes. But what about the timing of Apophis 2029? How does this fit in with Bible prophecy? This channel would be a whole lot more excited if Apophis was predicted to hit in the fall of 2030, not 2029. And April 13th doesn't fall on any Jewish fall holidays, like you would expect for the sixth seal. Now, that's not required that God do something that it falls on a Jewish holiday, but boy, it would sure make us feel more secure that we had an idea that this really was the sixth seal coming at us. But those events we talked about sure sound like an asteroid impact, the sixth seal events. So is it possible a similar asteroid, one that NASA hasn't found yet, is actually hurtling toward the Earth right now? Or might a collision of asteroids send one that isn't anywhere near us on its way to hit us in 2030? That's possible. And we now know that there's nothing science can do with such short notice. But why 2030? What is so special about that date? Well, many things. We suggest you watch the movie Messiah 2030 that's on the internet. But of equal interest is the fact that 3 star signs from Revelation 12 are set to appear in the constellations, all on Jewish feast days, predicting an identical year for the return of Jesus. Click right here to keep watching to see the movie about the star signs of Revelation 12, the exact dates they occur, and how this might show the timing of the major events in the book of Revelation. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.